This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sheridan, for jumping on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's so special.
My absolute pleasure. So do you want to tell us who you are, what you do, and kind of a little story on how you got here today?
Okay. Oh, God. How do I summarize that into a few sentences? I'm Sheridan.
Good start.
So my journey started in my very early 20s. So well before babies. And I've always had a fascination of food and why we eat it. And even I was a child that was always obsessed with my lunchbox. And that actually carried out through to in my high school times. I would always be the weirdo, like Carrie. I wasn't a weirdo, but like was a little bit when it came to my lunchbox. I would always have this great lunchbox with me, and people would always be interested into what I had in it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, steal food from it because they wouldn't have that grade of lunch boxes. And then I ventured out into the world myself because I didn't actually know what I wanted to do as a career. So I went to Wales in the UK, and I had a year there. And that got me really interested in nutrition from the perspective, though, of more of a superficial standpoint, which what I look at now is not ideal, but it was just because I had no idea. So what I mean by that is I was coming home soon and I needed to lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah. How do I look good?
So I was seeing my husband again, and it wasn't huge. I wasn't ginormous or anything by any means, but I'd never had an issue with weight. And I began to blame my shorts for shrinking in the dryer when I had them in the dryer. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe there is something going on here.
Interesting.
So, yeah, but I was literally living off pasta, tomato sauce, and tuna. Had the budget of maybe £5 a day, probably not even. And obviously lots of alcohol, etc.
I can't afford vegetables, but I can afford beer.
Yeah.
Classic backpacker's diet.
Vodka with some sort of juice, And the food, to put in perspective of where I came from, though, the foods I missed were things like Red Rooster, Fantail chocolates. I mean, these are very Australian foods. So, but, fast food, high sugar, muesli bars with chocolate on top were everyday things. White bread with Nutella. I just had no clue. And then so when I was I need to be thinking about food for the first time and what I'm actually consuming, because of media and marketing, started to travel towards, the salad section and, low fat, which fast forward to now is absolutely not how I think before anyone puts things on pause or whatever. That's just what we as society are convinced to believe, right? To low calorie and salads, boring salads with nothing going on for them.
Yeah.
And thankfully, so I actually got such an interest. I pictured myself trying to skip things and make it quicker for you. But basically, I pictured myself speaking at schools because at the time I was working at a boarding school and I saw the impact of the foods that people were eating within the boarding school on the children, but also my own health. So I pictured myself, speaking to schools. And it's so funny. I've had so many inquiries this year about speaking at schools, and I've done it previously as well. Yeah. And so that's what actually encouraged me to start studying nutrition.
Interesting. What were you doing at the boarding school at that time?
So because it was a gap year, I was working as a sports assistant teacher.
Cool.
So working with children and living and working within the boarding school.
Amazing.
And then so you have a lot of holidays, so then you just gallivant across Europe in that time.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing. And then I started to study nutrition, and thankfully a really beautiful woman on the Sunshine Coast poached me from where I was working, and she opened my eyes up to a different way of thinking. So not so much to trust what I was being taught at university, and instead question it and question everything, basically. And it just really, I'm so grateful for that experience, because who knows where the heck I would be now, health-wise and, of course, career-wise. And so that was a really beautiful experience of then learning, first of all, oh my gosh, I can live without symptoms. So when I talk about in the beginning the superficial symptoms I had, and that's what kind of led me to a real like interest. The thing is that what I know now is that is absolutely nothing. And what the real change, or what the real reasoning for why we eat certain things and why we don't eat certain things, is more immune system focused for me. So immune system, because I was suffering chest infections, sinus infections, skin rashes, period pain, extreme fatigue. Did I say chest infections? Basically, I was living off antibiotics, antihistamines, asthma puffers, all the things, and of course on the pill. So it's crazy to think what an early, 18, 19, 20-year-old could be on, and then think about the future, what that could have led to, the amount of pills that you would be on in future, right?
Yeah.
And so if I didn't change, my strong passion, of course, is preventing issues as well. So not only treating things like anxiety and depression and your current mood and your energy, and all of that is still really important, but it's also preventing, like illnesses in future. So that's huge, not just thinking about now, but also thinking about what you don't want to get in 50 years' time.
Absolutely. Yeah, cool. That's amazing. So then you went on to become this nutritionist, this amazing nutritionist who has so much knowledge now. And what do you do now? Because I know you've had a big venture since then as well. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So then now, when I fell pregnant with my firstborn Malakai, it opened a whole new world of, pregnancy nutrition, motherhood nutrition, postpartum nutrition. And so, that has become a ginormous focus for me, because of then going on to create my current company, Foraged for You, which has the product, the Mother's Blend. And I became so passionate about that in particular, because when I fell pregnant, I realized, the main focus was synthetic nutrients and synthetic nutrients only. It was also the focus of don't eat this, don't eat that. Yeah. It wasn't eat this, eat that. It was don't eat this and that and the other, but have your synthetic nutrient here. And what we know is that many of those synthetic nutrients that are advised, but particularly one big one, folic acid, that's recommended, it should be banned in short terms. I know people that might hear that might go, but it's done some good. Yes, it's done some good for some people and in some populations. However, in the big picture, there's a much better alternatives, but also in 60 to 80% of the population, we can't metabolize that. Folic acid, which is the synthetic type of folate or food folate or methylated folate, cannot be metabolized into the usable form in 60 to 80% of the population. So what that can lead to is actually more problems than benefit. So when we do this risk-benefit analysis, if you haven't had your genes tested to know if you can metabolize it, it's best to just either avoid it completely and go to food folate. There's no limitations there, but also if you'd like to, or you have doubts in your diet or doubts in your body for any reason, you can absolutely take a methylated folate. But anyway, so that's what led me into the land of Forage for You, because I was like, okay, so if people are so convinced to have synthetic nutrients throughout their time, we need to be considering food as well, because food always knows best. So I put together, a bunch of different foods that are the sources of particular nutrients that we as humans, but particularly mothers, need, and chose the most nutrient-dense foods basically on the planet of those particular nutrients, if that makes sense.
Yes. As a quick side note, is that what What food do you find folate in?
Okay, so you find food folate in liver,
Yes.
beetroot, spinach,
Amazing.
broccoli, lentils, fermented if you can. Literally, that's me rattling off foods that are in
Yes.
forage.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing until we got to the lentils. I was like, is there lentils in foraged? Is there lentils in foraged?
There is fermented.
Oh
though.
my gosh. I wouldn't have thought that. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's so good. Okay, so you have your mother's blend, and then currently as well you also have the child's blend. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So good.
So a lot of women were so P.S. There's other things in foraged other than what we just said, but that's definitely the folate foods. I'd also like to say asparagus is actually a really beautiful source of that. And if someone's listening, they want to have more food folate, just, even a cup of cooked spinach is such a beautiful dose. Preferably not raw, but yeah, cooked spinach is a really beautiful dose as well. But liver is huge. So the children's blend came about because so many mums were saying, can I give it to my children? And that was like literally the most common question ever.
Yes.
And whilst you definitely can, we needed to do something a little bit more specific because it takes away the question game. And it's just like there blatantly, if you would like to give it to your child, here you go. But the other reasoning is the nutrients are more specific to children. So, for example, they don't need as much iodine as us women do. So that's lowered. It's still there because it's still important, but it's just in a less amount. And then also a little bit more immune supportive ingredients like elderberry, camu is in forage as well, but in even a bit more amounts for them. And chamomile for not only gut calming, but mental calming as well. But also for if a child was teething, you could put it into ice blocks and they could chew on it, and then that can help with teething as well. Great. So a few different reasons for including that in there.
Ah, amazing. That's so interesting. So because here at Natural Birth Co. we love a good birth story, I would love a brief little story about your two boys being born.
Oh, okay. We got 36 hours.
I definitely do.
Okay, so the history of my family has been C-section. And you might expect me to then say it was a natural birth. I tried. But there's more to it. So my knowing of the gut and knowing of or gut health and the immune system and how important our gut microbiome is, but also just my interest in obviously, the woman experience and trying to trust my body and nature. I really wanted a natural birth. I was like, no, I know we've got this huge history of C-sections, but I'm a C-section baby. I really want to try my hardest for a natural birth and try and ignore those interventions. So I tried for 36 hours and with Malakai, and it was pretty full on. It was, hang on, do you want me to go like really front to back? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love it. You've got me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I didn't go to hospital until, and by the way, our hospital system is really beautiful, as you know, here on the Sunshine Coast. I was a part of the midwifery group practice, which, I had really beautiful midwives that were so supportive of my choices, and I had this beautiful birth plan. I did so much like yoga leading up to it, to help and all the things. However, so I went to hospital. It was all going really beautiful. I was having really intense contractions 3 minutes apart before we even decided to go. And we thought, everything's going perfectly to plan. However, got to the hospital and they just continued for, up to 36 hours, 3 minutes apart, sometimes closer, and really intense, of course. If anyone's been through labour, they know, I guess, how intense those contractions are. And though it got to that point where I did get checked and Malakai's head was still really high.
Yeah.
So, and I was becoming extremely exhausted by that point.
Yeah.
And, I was showing signs of not being very well, like my liver enzymes were becoming really high. I had no problems with blood pressure the entire pregnancy except for now this point. So it was like my body was, at screaming point.
Yeah.
And with Malakai still being really high. And I was asked for a C-section, earlier before that 36 hours. It was an absolute no. And then it got to the point where I was just so exhausted that I said a yes, and I sobbed. I haven't talked about it in so long. It makes me emotional.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, I like sobbed through, okay, yeah, I'm surrendering.
Yeah.
Like I actually just want to meet him now. That was the point.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I then started to get excited. Like I was just like, okay, yeah, this is happening. I've made the decision. Oh my gosh, we're actually going to meet him soon.
Yeah.
So my sister thankfully was there through the process as well. And she was kind of like a little bit of an advocate for me, and because she was studying midwifery at the time. So yeah, she's such a beautiful support. Poor thing, basically didn't sleep for that entire time.
Yeah.
And,
with no hormones to help.
Exactly. And my poor husband as well. They were incredible, like so amazing. And then I went forward with the C-section. So I don't like to say scary things for anyone listening, and it wasn't scary at all, but for me, for some reason, there's this point in my stomach where it was just referred pain. So that was quite painful, but I won't talk about that too much just in case anyone's listening that's going to have a baby. People have the most stunning C-section birth story, right? It's just so beautiful. So, but at that point, they got Malakai out, but I was so all the concoction of drugs that I was on for this C-section, it didn't do too well for me. So I was passing in and out, and they handed me Malakai after actually he choked on the meconium as well. So they had him off, away from me, getting him breathing again. And I was lying there passing in and out, and they like put him on me, and I was like, I can't even hold him. And then so in that period of time, if anyone is planning for a C-section, like I did want to do the seeding, so that you have the seeding of the microbiome. If you don't know what that is, just Google it. But basically it's can somewhat, make the effect that you would a baby coming through the birth canal microbiome wise. So smother the baby in your microbiome, so at least they get that first big dose of beneficial bacteria rather than just having a sterile environment, which I believe is so important. So that was missed. There were a lot of things, that first to first skin on skin connection was missed. He was cleaned. I was like, what? Like, when you come to realization of those things. So that took a lot of healing for me post-birth. I cried so much over this experience, and even friends did, because I knew how much I wanted this natural birth experience. And it just went, everyone was on the edge of their seat, like checking their phones, going, where the fuck is Sheridan? Like, where is this baby? Because they were waiting for days. Not knowing what was going on, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going into labour, and then they don't come again for so long after, and Sean's with me constantly. But anyway, so that was that experience. But honestly, after all of that, I was alert, I was okay, and I got wheeled down the hallway to my family after birthing him. Oh my God, it makes me so emotional.
Oh, it's a lot, and you're probably feeling the same emotions you were at the time just talking about it.
Yeah, but I was so excited. Like, I was like, had this huge smile on my face, like seeing my family, and I was like, oh my God, he's here. Like, it was so exciting. Like, holy shit, we're okay. That was the point. It was like, we're okay, we're here, woohoo.
Yes.
But I, like, upon reflection, probably a few months after, it was like I certainly went through that experience for a good reason, because I even spoke about in seminars before the birth of Malakai that C-sections are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly are, because in our Paleolithic days, one of the top 3 biggest killers in, even tribes that exist today, one of them is childbirth.
Yeah.
So how I didn't surrender to that a little bit easier is so silly, really. Like,
Fair.
I should have been mentally okay with it. Like, that's okay. They are here for a reason.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm not very okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was this, overcoming of all those emotions, which is still valid.
Yes. Yeah.
So going through to Xander, leading up to his birth, I was quite nervous because I was trying for a VBAC.
Oh.
Here I am again. And I had a lot of fear, of course. So I actually saw a really beautiful woman, Sarah Louise, her name is, and she is, I don't even know how to describe her, but she's basically like almost like Reiki, but light healer, like a little bit psychic as well, very intuitive. And it's very strange because every person that sees her has the same kind of like response, and you don't even know why or how, but you basically feel really light and golden and very positive after. So I went to see her, to help with this fear because it was pretty prevalent. And honestly, after I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, all I can picture my birth is light and golden and positive and exciting and happy. And I was like, wow, cool, I've got this.
Yeah.
Like, whatever's going to happen, yes, it might be a journey, but like whatever's going to happen, I surrender to it, but also I feel okay about things.
Yeah.
So I put it out there. I was like, yeah, I'm trying for a VBAC and we'll see what happens. And again, like the midwives were really supportive of it. And whilst I had so many contradicting views and, lots of fear put on me from all sorts of walks of life, I just chose to ignore that and try. And my water broke a week before even my labour starting. So I guess the noise already began a week earlier because it was, you need to be on antibiotics and so like there's a problem, you need to push this along. We need you need to be in hospital and
let's start your labour, that sort of stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So thankfully I ignored all that. And I started to get those early labour contractions and it progressed. And it was, instead of, I guess, one difference we had between my last labour with Malakai and Xander was that instead of in between each contraction, thinking about the next contraction or like being fearful of anything or having so much uncertainty, what I did in between each contraction with Xander was I was just trying to be happy and excited about it.
Amazing.
So we would play music, we would talk normally, we would, know the contractions coming, but it would be like, hey, this is happening, woohoo! And some yummy snacks and like really make the most of that 3 minutes or whatever.
Yes, so good.
Yeah, and just tried to just keep up that happiness.
Wow.
I also went to the hospital with really beautiful music in my ears and blue light blockers.
Yes.
So I was experiencing contractions with these blue light blockers on. And when we got to the hospital, I was experiencing very intense contractions. And I went to go put the headphones in, but they were all tangled like spaghetti, like,
yes.
So
back in the day with corded headphones.
Yes.
Crazy.
And then like we have to stand there for so long trying to unravel these headphones in the car park whilst I'm getting these contractions. But I was like, this is so important to me. But I ended up still using them, and they were just like completely lopsided, all tangled on the side of my face.
I can imagine.
It was really beautiful music. Blue, that was so unattractive, whatever. Hilarious. And anyway, so we get there and fast forward. Let's just go fast forward. And the pushing stage came. And I was in and out of the water, though. I actually got in the water at the pushing stage and then tried that for a long time. And it was still such a beautiful experience being in the water. However, the midwives eventually were like, okay, maybe we should try a different position. So we got out, tried all different positions, and turned out that I was pushing for 4 hours.
Wow.
Which...
How exhausting.
So exhausting, like every single cell in the body and beyond burst with so much force. When people say it took a couple of minutes, I'm like, what do you even mean? Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So 4 hours, so a lot of exhaustion there, but I was so willing, and I was not wanting a episiotomy, but it got to the point where the midwife said, look, we could just try and like do a tiny little snip and then maybe it could help. And then I was like, at that point, what I said was like, whatever you need to do, just fucking do it. Just do it right.
No pressure.
Yeah. So it was this tiny little snip, and then I think it was the second contraction after that. He came out, and surprisingly, it was on my back. But I know, so surprising.
Wow.
And however, it was like a football match, honestly. The pushing stage was like a football match. It was hilarious. Like everyone standing around, like, okay, here we go. Like, like this, like push like this, get like this. Like it was just like an actual football match.
Take some deep breaths and go. It is so intense, that pushing phase.
Yeah, so intense. And I remember the girl sitting to my left, she was a midwife, and I hadn't ever met this girl before. She had clocked on because the other ones, I don't know where they went, but one was there and she was there too. And she looked at me in my eyes like so deeply with so much purpose and like meaning and this different type of energy that I hadn't felt, I guess, from someone else. And she was like, I know you can do this. You've got this. And then she was like, and you've got to do this before the doctor comes back, because he was wanting to come back and do something like, intervene in some way because I'd been pushing for so long. So she peers me out. I looked at her. I was like, yeah, okay, I can do this. And then went for it. And then he came out and it was so beautiful. Like he got to be on my chest straight away. And it was just so amazing. And then, so this same girl that encouraged me so much, she was sewing me up. It feels like it takes a lifetime, that sewing up.
Yeah.
And as she was doing that, she was like, so I've actually been following you for years. So she was a follower on Instagram, and she had been following my journey, like knowing that I was trying for a VBAC, knowing that my waters broke, so long before. And she basically knew how much I wanted it. And so she was just like this literal light in there. I don't know what her name was, but she was such an angel. And then we started talking about all the recipes she makes, the forage she has.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, the midwives from the hospital listen to this podcast. So whoever that was, if you remember, hit us up. We would love to know who you are.
Yes, and I think in the whirlwind of being postpartum, I actually wanted to send her some foraged, but I don't know where her message was, what her name was. So, I did do that. So, I still would like to.
3 years later, you might score yourself some forage. Send me a message.
At the least.
Oh, isn't that amazing? Isn't that in birth? This is what I tell our dads in the birth workshop all the time, is that you don't have to know. You don't have to know. You just need to say what you're going to say with complete conviction. She just needs your complete faith and trust that she can do it. She is strong enough. She is capable. We do trust in the process of birth, and we need to be unwavering in that telling of her. And I think like her going along your story, even though you'd never met her before, in a sense, it was almost continuity of care because she knew your whole story, that she could obviously cultivate that connection with you. How special.
Yes, and the male can do that.
Yes.
Like or whatever it is, whatever partner it is, like they know the story, they know how much they want it, they know the capability.
Yes.
Like, yeah, and it really helps. Like whatever it is, it really helps.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you got your V back. Isn't that special? What do you feel like you did different from the first time to the second time?
Maybe it was it could have been a little bit of the healing of the fear
Yes.
thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe it also could be that my body had done half of the work previously and it kind of knew a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I had gotten really far with Malakai, just not far enough,
Yeah.
Also maybe the happiness between each contraction, like really trying to just embed that good feeling.
Yeah.
Optimism, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I love that.
And honestly, when I think back of my birth, like how that golden and light vision that I had, like I feel like that was around the birth. Like it felt really light and golden and beautiful despite the whole pushing phase being so full on.
Yeah.
It was still really beautiful.
So special. So special. I am so happy for you with that. I just think, the energetic side of things that you were saying, releasing the fear, that is not given nearly enough credit. Like we can hold these babies in tight when we're feeling fear, doubt, distrust, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I certainly would have. And even maybe just because it wasn't a planned baby. I was very excited to have him, but didn't plan for it. So maybe there was an element of fear bringing a baby into the world for the first time. And then with Sandra, it was like, I've done this before. I can do it. Yeah. So could be a couple of different levels there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your birth story. I appreciate that.
Sorry for getting emotional.
No, I love it. I love it. And I'm not surprised. That's, super normal. Super normal. Yeah. Mamas, are you not local to the Sunshine Coast but want to prepare yourself and your partner for a natural birth? We have our amazing new course called Birth Circle, which is run exclusively online. It is literally the most in-depth, integrative, supportive birth preparation service that we offer here at Natural Birth Co. If you want tangible steps, holistic practices, and expert support individualized for you to prepare your mind, body, and partner for a progressive birth, this is for you. The link is in the show notes for an August start, and there is only limited spots, so get in quick. Okay, so nutrition hat on. What are your biggest tips for nourishment in the preconception period for both mother and father?
Okay, so firstly, knowing that it's 50-50 nourishment. It's considering both the mother and father. It's really critical. So what I would first do, if they're getting the opportunity to think about their nourishment, because of course a lot of people might just, spontaneously fall pregnant, and that is so fine, and beautiful babies still come from that. And actually with how some people speak about it, I don't like how there can be this then element of fear of I effed up, or like, oh my gosh, I did this. Beautiful babies come from no planning. And that's so fine. However, if you get the opportunity to nourish yourself and your partner, then why not really? Without fear though, because there also can be so much like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this perfect. And so just still flow and be grateful for the opportunity that you have and what you have access to, but don't have that level of fear around it too, or being so obsessive about it.
Yeah.
So, however, there are some really beautiful nutrients that someone can involve, and there's also, of course, a lot of things that people can take away from their diet and their lifestyle in order to allow their body to function better. So, for example, if we're going back to those immune things or my passion for our immune system, that becomes a really big focus in this time, because you want to allow your immune system / inflammation within the body to become calmer and make your body feel a bit more like, okay, coast is clear. Now I can nourish my own self. Now I can focus on my own healing, my own day-to-day needs as a human. Does that make sense? Rather than focusing on trying to detoxify from this, trying to fight against this. Like, that's what's going on within our body every single day. If we just take away those things that are bothering the body, it allows it to function so much better. It doesn't steal as many nutrients. It doesn't, it allows your hormones to be so much happier. So some of those things, for example, that you might want to take away are foods that you know that you're intolerant to, because that's flaring up your immune system every single bite. And unfortunately, that's just how the immune system works. Like, as much as you want to like coat it or like deny it, or that's just how it works. And that was the most important thing that I ever learned, because it allowed my immune system to really calm down, and therefore my hormones, and therefore my symptoms that I was experiencing. So whether it be all the sinus issues, chest infections, inflammation in the body, aches and pains, but also period pain, and therefore hormones that are completely out of whack that also create anxiety and blah, blah, blah. So calm down the immune system. So some top foods that some people might react to is, don't be fearful just yet, because I will explain, but gluten, corn, soy, vegetable oils, additives that are in our food. So when I say gluten, corn, soy, what I mean by that is the classic modern day versions of those sorts of things. So if we are to find the original wheat grains of wheat and turn it into a sourdough like we were 50 to 100 years ago, then of course it would be probably completely fine within your body. However, how we're having it today is modern hybridized wheat, which is similar to genetically modified, which has been linked to huge amounts of inflammation, endless, infinity amounts of symptoms, gut issues. But the other issue with this modern wheat is that we're also not turning it into something like a sourdough or fermenting it prior, and that also creates, further issues. So that is a huge passion of mine, is trying to make sure people are aware of the foods that are just triggering those everyday annoying symptoms that you can be free from. And that can really help someone out in their fertility journey. I know that sounds bizarre, but like sometimes it's not about what we're eating, but what we have to take away as well. So that's one example of a food before I take up a whole podcast. But other lifestyle things, I would say one of the biggest chemicals is fragrances. And I say this because it's so important for men and women, and I'd say mainly men, because it's really important for their testosterone production, their semen health, semen motility, so sperm motility. So fragrances, like even like the little fragrance thingies that men love to have in their cars. Like that's me, because Sean, that's been like the last straw. Like, come on, man, get this out of the car.
This is the most insignificant thing that
so insignificant.
he just had an attachment.
Yeah, he'll try and get away with it and put it at the very back of the car. And I'm like, nah, I can smell that thing from basically Japan. Like, but of course, like, men love like cologne. That's like a part of them. But there's so many alternatives to those sorts of things now. And this goes, of course, for women too: shampoos, body washes, face stuff, all sorts of things, candles, etc. So that kind of stuff is really important to hopefully get out of the home and around their environment. Yeah. So of course, like people might only want to really look into that kind of stuff if they were also having problems. But honestly, just get it out anyway. You may as well start making that transition. But foods to have, of course, I'm going to fat and protein are the biggest focused foods that, you know, for any human, but particularly during this time.
Fat and protein.
Fat and protein are huge. And I know they're just words and they can get lost in the matrix and kind of be put aside as not being too important. They are critical. And I know it's boring talk really, but like animal protein in particular, if possible, would be incredible. So slow cooked meats, eggs, fish, anything along those lines is so nourishing to women, our hormones, but also, of course, men as well. And then never cutting off the fat. So never removing the fat from those things and embracing it and enjoying it. And yeah, so someone might not be scared of fat, but they actually could still not be having enough. So think of like ghee, butter, if you tolerate it. So ghee is a nice one if someone doesn't tolerate the whey, casein, or lactose in butter. So ghee is really beautiful for an alternative to that. And coconut oil even, you know, those sorts of things. But, yeah, don't be fearful of those animal fats because we're so fearful of them in today's society. And even it still blows my mind that it's still a problem or to be feared today with how much research we have now about it. But it's still huge.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Even at the hospital, we still have trim milk in the fridges, low-fat milk, which is crazy. Yeah. But that's fascinating. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, it's so fine. I would say some other really important nutrients in this time that can often be missed, especially for women, is iodine. I'd say most women, if you're not conscious of it, you will be deficient in iodine. That, like, I could pretty confidently say if you're not aware of it, you're probably deficient because not only are we not eating enough iodine-rich foods, which is basically seaweed.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit in oysters, but that's it. And so kelp is one of the richest sources of iodine. And this is because our soils are depleted and there used to be some in eggs a little bit, but it's not that much anymore. And also we drink fluoridated and chlorinated water, which rob us of iodine. And also, so chlorine, even in our showers, that can rob us of iodine. There's also other things like in our carpets, which is bromide. I'm pretty sure it's in our carpets. Don't quote me on that. I'm a nutritionist, not like a furniture person. But yeah, pretty sure it's bromide that can be found in things like carpets that also can rob us of iodine. So there's so many things that can rob us, but we're not actually consuming enough of it at all. So that's why kelp is something that I've popped in forage. So if somebody is having that, it's a really beautiful dose. You can get your urine iodine levels tested. Of course, you can get so much tested, but that's one thing that you might want to add on. So, of course, I would even just consider getting someone's nutrients tested altogether just to find out a ballpark of where you're at. So you can get really in-depth testing. So don't just go to the doctor and rely on that. Get your...
Yes, we're ready.
Yes, get your iron, include not only ferritin, because that's the most common test that, you know, pregnant women get tested, but we want to get hemoglobin tested. I know we're talking about preconception, but still it's important. Hemoglobin tested and ferritin tested, so your full iron analysis, but also urine iodine, vitamin D, zinc, B12, folate, and also your thyroid and your thyroid antibodies, which isn't often not tested as well. So I would say, I don't think I'm missing anything, but I probably am. Those would be a nice package for you to get tested to just know where you're at.
That's such a good list. Yeah.
And then that way you can cater your needs and try not to rely on synthetic nutrients to replete those nutrients.
Yeah.
Because we spoke about folate. So, of course, folate is really important prior to conception, but also same with choline. So we put all this emphasis on folate or folic acid as the supplement, which we know now not to have. However, let's not forget about choline, which is a really beautiful nutrient that actually works hand in hand with folate. And so the biggest source of that, though, is egg yolks.
Yes.
So women, I just think about a woman actually on Instagram. She is a fitness influencer, and she shares her diet all the time. And she's just announced she's pregnant finally after, years and years of miscarriages, early miscarriages. So unfortunate. And I know there's a lot of reasoning on all sorts of things, and we can't, from just a bloody Instagram post, pinpoint exactly why. Like, it's impossible. However, I did see her diet most days of egg white omelets.
Interesting.
I know, and I can't say it's because, like, that's, silly to say it's because someone hasn't eaten egg yolks. However,
we can hypothesize.
Yes. We also know the importance of, like, those nutrients and the fat. So, an egg white omelet symbolizes that someone's low fat, right? But they're missing out not only on the fats, but also other really critical nutrients within that, like vitamin A, D, E, and K, which are all fat-soluble vitamins that someone will be missing out on if they're not having fats.
Wow.
But also, of course, choline, that's so rich in egg yolks. So you could have, I think it's like 3 egg yolks will be almost suffice someone for the amount of choline that someone needs. But, of course, you're getting it through other foods as well, like brassica vegetables, so greens. So greens, eggs, meats, fats,
Yes.
voila. And then other things, use them as sprinkles on top.
Yes.
Use them as razzle and dazzle, but use all of that as your foundation. I don't want to miss also just the quality of water someone's drinking as well would be really important. Yeah,
very true. Do you think you can have too many eggs?
I definitely think you can have too much of anything. I think if someone is having an overexposure of anything, it can be an issue, but particularly with eggs. But again, this comes down to more of an immune system reaction, not necessarily due to, like, the classic thinking of cholesterol and heart disease and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Your body will really know and communicate with you if you're having too many. So you'll get that through digestion or immune system reactions. But when it comes to, like, something like cholesterol, when they're like, oh, you can only have 2-3 eggs a week or something absolutely ridiculous, what you eat is only contributing maximum 2% to your cholesterol levels that come up in a reading. So the rest of that reading is coming from your own body. So it's going, okay, so why do I have high cholesterol levels? Why is my body producing that higher amount of cholesterol? And that can be low vitamin D, it can be inflammation, it can be thyroid problems, rather than, it could be infection at the time, rather than going, I'm having too many eggs.
Yes. Amazing. So interesting. Well, what do you think, would anything be different for the pregnancy phase as to what we would eat?
Of course, there's so many variables due to a personal experience that comes down to an individual. But the concept certainly remains true through the pregnancy, absolutely. However, it would just be being more careful about that nutrient consumption to just ensure that the mother particularly doesn't become so depleted. And this goes towards postpartum as well. So I would say in a pregnancy, and also during this time, it's really important for women to eat enough. So not fasting, especially if you're trying to conceive, absolutely no fasting. But obviously, of course, during a pregnancy, your body communicates you like no other time in your life. It really screams at you. And that's the tricky thing, is that, of course, it can scream for all sorts of things, but keep the concept of real food, foods that agree with you, and fats and proteins, grains, nuts, seeds prepared as correctly as possible so it doesn't deplete you of other minerals, because when they're not prepared correctly, they can deplete you.
Interesting.
In minerals, like zinc and iron, for example, which are really important, of course, for women during this time. But you might want to have a heavier focus on blood-building foods. So organ meats, and that's why liver is in foraged.
Yeah.
And definitely not focusing on super low carbohydrate. We want a little bit in there as well to support that pregnancy, the grounding type foods. But intuition, like I said, will scream. But intuition and just cravings and all sorts. Yeah. But it is just trying to stick with that foundation of real food. So because cravings can be so intense and nausea can be so intense, what I generally say is I will note that fat and salt is so important in pregnancy, and a woman's body will scream for it, and they'll scream for it generally in the form of a hot chip.
I was going to say that. I was like, instead of reaching for the hot chips, what can we reach for instead? That's salty and fatty.
Exactly. Well, you can totally reach for the hot chip, but try and maybe get it cooked in lard or like cooked in coconut oil or ghee, or you won't really find it out, but sometimes you can find it cooked in lard or duck fat, which is incredible. Like that turns a crappy chippy into a good chippy. You know, you've got the good quality salt, you've got the good fats, and you've got those starches there. And obviously don't just survive on hot chips, but like don't say no. Your body is salt and it's wanting fat, and salt is critical for women during this time because minerals are so important. So if someone's low salt, it can actually create more issues. And we have to watch salt, which is just crazy. So when you're having good quality salt like Himalayan or Celtic sea salt, go for it. Your body needs it. Yeah,
that's something I always like to say to mamas is when you are craving the hot chip or the cheeseburger, rather than trying to label the actual food it is, what's the flavor that you want in your mouth, and then trying to like get a real food version of that, because often you'll think I want the packet of chips, but then really it's actually that salty flavor that you're after, and you could easily go find that in something else.
Exactly. Salt is something that is so intuitive, right? So sometimes you want more, sometimes you want less, and it's blood volume, the water volume that's increasing in women as well. Our needs are so much higher. Just listen to that.
What about specific towards a baby's development? What sort of food specific towards that would be good?
So as in pregnancy?
Yes.
Okay. So I would note cod liver oil is something that I personally find really important throughout a pregnancy for brain development. Also, again, iodine. So I feel like there's such an emphasis on folate, but not enough emphasis on iodine for both the mum and the baby. So that can lead to even thyroid issues within the baby. They're not having enough of that. So again, you could get your urine iodine levels tested. And again, it's really important for brain development for the baby as well. Vitamin A is often disregarded and told not to have during a pregnancy. However, it's actually really important. So natural vitamin A, so critical. So that's rich in cod liver oil, it's rich in liver. And so those two things often are told, women are told not to have. However, we really need it.
Absolutely.
Literally helps with proper formation of our organs.
Amazing. And folate, that's for the heart, isn't it? That's why we have folic acid, but we can get folate in food.
Totally, It's to prevent neural tube defects. So that's generally recommended for women to supplement up till 3 months. I mean, you can continue it if you would like to, but again, no folic acid. And you can get it through your food, but if you feel like, popping in an insurance policy on yourself and just rather be, just make sure you're hitting that max amount, you can get a methylated folate, a plain methylated folate. Some women have that alongside foraged if they have doubts in their diet. So there is, of course, folate in foraged. It's just not the, the whopping amounts that they have in a synthetic pill. Yeah.
Yes.
So but when you combine that with forage, say with your diet, often women are topped. You're actually getting quite a lot. The frustrating thing in our society today is that media, marketing, and even science, to be honest, it puts women in a position of holding doubt within their own body.
Yes.
And so when it comes to food, when it comes to really anything, but we become fearful that we are not capable of nourishing ourselves and our baby. Whereas if we're just told, hey, eat this, eat that, or even just place faith back in our body, then we can hold that faith and keep going and realize, hey, my grandparents did all of this.
Yes.
Just like I am, except I actually have more knowledge now than what my parents did. And we're so blessed to have that. So, for example, the supplementation of folic acid literally only started around 30 years ago. So our parents didn't have it. 30, your parents didn't have it. You were born with no folic acid supplementation. And so it's putting that into perspective as well. So, and at the end of the day, someone can make the decision that they want to make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what about then to go into the postpartum phase? What do you think are the most important either even meal ideas or nutrients to get in that first 6 weeks?
Okay, so surprisingly, a lot of women are never told to continue nourishment postpartum, right? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty much right there, right? Mm-hmm. Like unless you're in the space, I don't remember anyone ever telling me.
No. Postpartum, they're fed like white bread and cheese sandwiches and all sorts of disgusting foods.
Oh my
Cereal,
gosh.
cornflakes, rice bubbles for breakfast.
Shut your face.
No, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I know. I always tell them, I'm like, prepare food and take it in Tupperware containers and like just heat up stuff in the microwave, or even if you have to, like better than that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So much better. I feel so lucky. I think my mum brought me either lamb shanks or ossobuco when I just had, Xander, that's the latest one I remember. It would have been the same with Malakai, absolutely, but I feel so freaking lucky.
Absolutely. Especially you would have been in for a couple of days. That's a good 6 meals in that first, like you're trying to create breast milk for the first time. Like, gosh, you need more than white bread, that's for sure.
It's like literally heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So surprisingly, women's needs is often actually more than a pregnancy in postpartum. Yeah, more. Come on, women. It's more. So, for example, our iodine needs are more. Our vitamin A needs are more. Our vitamin C needs is more. Our calcium needs is more. So women are often left with, saggy white bread and maybe some margarine, which literally provides zero for a woman or baby. And also our omegas is still really important during that time as well. So important. So, your body, again, communicates this extreme hunger when we are breastfeeding. It is like a hunger you've never experienced before, is ravenous. And that is screaming out first and foremost for protein and fat. If a woman is like, I don't have any hands, I can't do anything, cook a lamb chop or cook an egg with this one hand that you've got, or a steak, a fish, can of fish. Like if you're eating your protein, that is better than nothing. So protein, at least 3 meals a day. Because a lot of women are having avo on toast, probably with no butter or ghee, and thinking that's going to allow them to survive and create this beautiful breast milk that we need. However, how can the body do it without any bricks? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Needs the foundation, and protein and fat are your foundation. And then we need to consider those nutrients and razzle dazzle on top. So if I was to say 3 things for a woman postpartum, though, it would be forage for you.
Yes.
And maybe double dose for a bit.
Yes.
Because why not? Depends what your levels are, but I love double dosing when I'm in times of extra need.
Especially if you had a bit of a bleed, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah,
Or like a super long, laborious labour.
it saved so many people's needs, or like saving them from iron infusions, like postpartum.
Yeah.
So after huge bleeds, it's the amount of emails that we get and reviews about that is incredible. Yeah.
Good.
Especially in comparison to their other births, like, oh my gosh, I needed so much, but this time I needed none. And
Yes.
that, and then also I would do some cod liver oil or regular fatty fish. So you could do sardines or salmon, bit of both. And then that's cod liver oil. There was something. Oh, the other thing I was thinking was more adaptogens. So because it's such a stressful time, well, it can be really stressful. Our hormones are just going through so many changes. It can come with so many new emotions of your new life and blah, blah, blah. Isolation, sleepless nights. Our cortisol levels really need some support. So that's when you could bring in things like reishi is so beautiful. Ashwagandha, maca is another one that's just a gentle little, but I would more focus on those mushrooms. So probably those two are my favorite.
Is ashwagandha a mushroom?
No, sorry, ashwagandha is not a mushroom.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry. I was like, mind blown then.
No.
Everything I thought was wrong.
Yes, so thank you. So ashwagandha is a root. Reishi is a mushroom, but there's other types of mushrooms that people can have. You can get mixtures even.
Yeah.
But those two are my favorite adaptogenic herbs. Maca is an adaptogen as well, but I would probably say that can be more for times when you're seeing some hormonal imbalance.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that they would be like my critical things, of course, above your fats and proteins and those meals. I loved like homemade banana bread, for example, with like huge amounts of ghee on top. I would eat so much of that every day. Like this is banana bread, of course, it's made out of, either coconut flour or it might be an almond meal.
Yeah.
So preferably, and if you're going to use wheat flour, try and at least make it a fermented sourdough one.
Yes. You have a great, I think it's called banana bread on your website. That's so good.
Great memory.
Yeah, it's delicious. I've made it tons of times. It's so good. Yeah, so and I love it. You put it on as like a suggestion to have it with yogurt and honey. Oh, so good.
Yum. So good.
Yeah.
And just slather so much ghee on top of that, and it's so nourishing. I've got another banana bread one that's half hemp seeds and half almond meal. And the hemp seeds are a bit more protein for this time. And of course you've got the eggs in there, which is really great. But yeah, and also if you need to rely on, services where they bring you food, do it.
Yes.
Such beautiful services. I don't think enough contain meat, to be honest.
Yes.
And if you are plant-based, at least soak the crap out of your lentils or quinoa or ferment them even better. So then you actually can absorb and digest that protein really well.
Yes. Oh, so good. So good. I actually also love just thinking about slow-cooked meats. You've got a lamb recipe with all these spices. I'm actually making it on the weekend. That is so good. And I feel with slow-cooked meats, let me know what you think, that you can easily do that in pregnancy and freeze it in portions or freeze the whole thing. You can do so many slow-cooked meats like that, and they take like 5 minutes in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could bank up so many meals there if you don't have a family that's going to demolish them all. But you could do this. What I did at the end of my pregnancy was just 2 things at once when I'm doing a normal dinner. So it's not like extra work. It's just doing the same thing twice. Do 2 slow roasted lambs, pull off the meat and pop it into a container, pop it in the freezer. Or something a friend brought me, actually, it was just so random, definitely more laborious, but you could just find a recipe and send it to a friend or freeze it for yourself if you're a bit bored in your pregnancy. Is a homemade like beef mince pie.
Ooh.
I know, but you could use a cassava or almond meal grain pastry. Oh, sorry, not grain. Cassava or almond meal pastry and do like mince, and you could put broth in there, you could put vegetables in there, you could put liver in there, and that's like a complete meal all at once, where you can one hand heat it up, pop it in the oven, and then off you go. But also same with like meat patties and freeze that too.
So good, so good. I love that. I love that. Okay, so I kind of feel like we've touched on this, but let me know what you think. How forage supports mamas, I guess through all phases, because I have foraged and I'm completely babyless or not pregnant or anything like that. But then obviously like so many pregnant women have it, postnatal women have it. So, but I do feel like we've touched on that. What do you think?
So I am 3 years postpartum and I still take forage every day.
Yeah.
My dad, who's, he's actually early 70s now.
Wow.
Takes forage every day.
Legend.
There's 80-year-old women that are subscribed to forage. And how it can support a normal human is just because I've chosen the foods and nutrients within those foods that humans are commonly depleted in. It's just in those baby making stages of our lives that we need more of those nutrients. But of course we need more of these nutrients at other stages of our lives. So for example, recently I got influenza like probably about 6 months ago, and it really rocked me nutritionally. My body I also had been to Italy, so had eaten things I don't usually, and I definitely shouldn't have because I didn't tolerate it.
I'm glad to hear you had a pizza though, Sheridan. I'm hoping that's what it was.
Pizza, carbonara, like all the things, and it was so good. No regrets whatsoever.
Good on you.
Yeah, it was so yummy. However, I definitely didn't tolerate it, and it sent me, and it could have been the influenza, because the moment I landed back in Australia, I got influenza. So I don't know if it was that really sent me nutritionally deplete, or both, even probably a bit of a combination, plus some stress. So personally, I started double dosing at a time when I realized I had my bloods done, and I was actually low in iodine, which is pure like indication of fighting stuff in my body.
Wow.
And so I was like, whoa, okay, cool. This gives me a free ticket to have as much forage as I like. This is fantastic. So I went ham on it.
Yeah.
And it helped immensely.
Amazing.
And so that's 3 years postpartum. So just utilize it as a tool, but also for regulating periods, lowering period pain. Women can suffer period pain or even no period for 10 years of their life, and then finally it's regulated or comes back, or energy and clarity is back. So, and this is not me selling it. This is pure me being passionate about it.
Yeah. We're here for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, at the end of the day, I think this is a massive part of why forage is so amazing, is that us busy humans are suckers for convenience and all of these nutrients we need in all of our life, which we should be able to get a lot of it from food, and maybe just need that boost in pregnancy. However, most of us don't go and eat liver on the regular or kelp. And I feel like it's a really great steady income, those nutrients, when we have pretty bland diets. And even again with the convenience, I've catch myself doing this, and I try to not do it, but eat the same things. You get some good things, and yes, it's super healthy and amazing, but you just eat the same things, the salmon, the rocket, the goat's cheese, and it's just the same nutrients, and you need obviously the variety coming in. So yeah, I think it's good for that.
You've taken words out of my mouth, because I feel the exact same, because personally, I was, it was annoying to think about liver all the time, to think about kelp all the time, to think about chlorella, to fermented foods like camu, and I was getting them from all different places. And I've been reflecting lately how freaking crazy it is that before foraged, I was buying liver capsules from America.
Oh my gosh.
That's how rare it was.
Wow.
And now it's flooded the market, right?
Yes.
crazy. But yeah, I was buying all these things from all these different places. And so to pop it into the one thing was just not only way more affordable, but also so much more convenient.
Yes.
And I've got the benefit now of the beetroot juice, which helps that nutrient delivery. So yeah, that's underrated, beetroot juice. So
yes. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. For some reason in my mind, beetroot I wouldn't see as a nutritionally dense food.
I know. And it's so funny because I was actually speaking to our nutritionist and naturopath earlier, and I said to them, you know, as an Instagram post, if you'd like to like highlight a food that you really love and write about it and say it's by you, blah, blah, blah. And then Fleur, one of the naturopaths, she was like, okay, perfect. Oh my God, I'm so excited to do beetroot. And then I was like, yes, that's such a good idea because people underrate it. Like it's so powerful. It really helps with your energy and clarity, but particularly nutrient delivery.
Yeah.
So you're eating all those nutrients and then it's like, I'm coming in to help out.
Amazing to be like the delivery person. That's interesting. Yeah, the second with beetroot, I just think about the color. What's the other food I do it with? I can't remember, but I just think I can't be bothered dealing with the mess. Yes. Don't worry about it.
That's the exact same. We were all saying, oh my God, I never buy beetroot, but I think I just don't buy it because I know it's in forage now.
Yes.
But yeah.
So good, so good. Well, let's jump into a couple of our Instagram questions that we got from the mamas. So firstly, this is from I Know a Pregnant Woman. Tips for getting iron and hemoglobin up and also tips for constipation. So in pregnancy, this would be.
Yeah, all right. So, all right, I'll try and make this quick.
Yes.
So I would definitely say liver. There's a big focus always with when we're focusing on iron, there's a big focus on iron only. But what we need to do is think about iron cofactors. So often it's the cofactors that we need to help with like iron metabolism. Cofactors are nutrients that help out iron. So, and it helps out iron metabolism, iron, you know, just all the things to do with iron. So things that includes vitamin A, so which you naturally find in liver, and then also copper, which you naturally find in liver, which is interesting, right? Because liver is one of the biggest sources of iron, and then you've got this really nicely packaged in there.
Food is smart like that.
It is smart. And when you're eating raw liver or freeze-dried liver, you do have a little bit of vitamin C in there, which is also a cofactor. However, you might want to focus on more vitamin C than usual. So it could be like a camu that's in forage, but you might want even more. So you could do like, you know, berries, like wild berries in your diet. It could be even extra like kakadu plum or something like that in someone's diet as well. So really focusing on that vitamin C. But I would really also be focusing on, P.S. you could do cod liver oil because that's got a really beautiful dose of vitamin A as well. I would really be focusing on why am I deficient? So that can be nutrient absorption. So are you eating lots of foods that are blocking nutrient absorption? So it could be a food you're actually intolerant to and your body's like, no, you don't fit through. I'm busy dealing with this. So reduce food intolerant foods or foods that you know, oh, okay, I probably shouldn't be eating that as much. And not drinking like black or green tea all day because they are also going to rob you of iron.
Is that only when we eat it like at the same time? Drink it at the same time as we eat?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why I said all day. If someone's like some people drink tea a lot all day. Yeah. So if you're going to have, say, your iron-rich food, try not to have it within 1 to 2 hours of that.
Okay.
Tea or even coffee. So if someone's low in iron, I would usually say with forage, have it like 1 to 2 hours away. So personally, I have a coffee in the morning and I have my forage either at lunchtime or mid-afternoon, sometimes in the morning. Really depends on someone's lifestyle. It's really great in the morning because you get that kick for the day and you just feel great. But like, yeah, just arrange that situation.
Yes. Yeah, but if you want coffee, then you've got to make priorities.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, priorities. And constipation. Yeah. So I would, again, think about foods that you're intolerant to that you're consuming that might be actually creating some inflammation, throwing out your gut bacteria. You might want to consider some beneficial bacteria if you're not already. So fermented foods, just start low and work up and listen to your body. But like really raw, beautiful forms of sauerkraut, kimchi, play with those things and again, slowly work up. I really like kefir, which is one brand is Cultured Wellness.
Yeah.
Coconut water kefir, it's really nice.
Do you have that by itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, coconut water kefir, but you can ferment anything. You can ferment apple juice and make it all fizzy and bubbly and delicious. Yeah. You could also, of course, really consider your magnesium levels. So magnesium is such a common deficiency, particularly during pregnancy. It's huge. So really hammer magnesium. My gosh, I cannot believe I didn't mention magnesium earlier. Magnesium is so important.
There's just so much good stuff to talk about.
I know. Magnesium is critical. It's a mineral. So again, like we become very mineral deplete, but magnesium is really huge. So definitely enhance that in all different ways. So whether it be bath, on your skin, a supplement through salt, concentrated sea minerals is really rich in magnesium. But also a magnesium supplement is often needed. So that's okay. Just there's so many different types. Just making sure it's not magnesium citrate. I don't really love. And not as many excipients, which is like flavors and stuff. So I usually like tablet form of magnesium if you're going to choose.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, fantastic. Do you ever think osteo for constipation?
Oh, true. Yes.
Sorry, that's obviously off where I know we're talking about nutrition. It's just a thought that I've had recently and I was intrigued on your thoughts.
Well, yeah, osteo, physio, chiro, any kind of body work, absolutely. Also emotional. So if it's consistent, you're doing all the things, you can be holding on to something and not resolving something. So constipation can be quite huge or can be like anger, you're really, holding on to some sort of resentment. I mean, anger and resentment is often liver, but it can coincide with then constipation, but also just that holding on aspect. So there's a lot of avenues that someone could take.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so this one's from a postnatal mama where her baba is about to start solids this week. What should she do for baby nourishment?
Lots of things. However, definitely you want to, if I'm really to throw whole books into a few sentences. Sorry.
Okay.
So iron rich foods is a really big thing. So don't shy away from meats and don't rely on, say, iron fortified foods like rice cereal. So I think I've done a post on rice cereal, as often that's one of the first recommended things, and it's certainly not something I recommend. You know, you could do a lamb chop. You could do, what I would do is, for example, Boob to Food has got a really beautiful book for women, starting their baby on solids. It's called Milk to Meals, and that's so helpful. It's definitely a great Bible to have. But yeah, things like pate is so beautiful for them. But of course, then avocado can be a great first food. Broccoli cooked in bone broth, and then bone broth is a great first food. And I did personally a mixture of baby-led weaning and purees. I just liked the feeling of both of them.
Yeah.
And just doing whatever you feel comfortable with. But
So good. I love that. And I love the aspect that you just mentioned of you don't have to be so gung-ho towards one thing and follow that exactly, even if you're being drawn in other ways. You can have a good combination of a couple of different things, the purees and the lamb chops and that sort of thing. So I think that's really good. Yeah, let yourself be versatile.
Yeah.
Amazing. Alrighty. One last question. My doctor was concerned with the dried beef liver content in foraged specifically.
Okay.
I don't know if she's talking about pregnancy or postpartum, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. True. All right. Well, first I would question the doctor as to what is he concerned about. Like just nicely, hey, I'm just wondering what you're concerned about. And see what they say. Often the biggest concern that a doctor might have is the vitamin A content. And if you've listened to the whole thing, you will understand that vitamin A is actually critical for humans, but critical particularly during pregnancy and postpartum and preconception as well. So we need vitamin A for, actually, I won't go into that. I'll go into why it is demonized. So vitamin A became like this scary nutrient for pregnant women to have based on a study that was in 1995, and it tested pregnant women on huge whopping doses of synthetic vitamin A. So, and that is so they were giving pregnant women 10,000 IU of vitamin A, which is a huge dose, which is actually really hard to achieve through diet alone. So not only is it synthetic and isolated and doesn't perform like nature's vitamin A, it also was this huge dose. So it's not only unrealistic, but it's also almost just not we can't base our diet off that, our food sources of vitamin A off this. There's no studies, literally no studies, showing that food-based vitamin A can lead to any issues. And the issues that they were found in small amounts was birth defects from this whopping dose of vitamin A. Synthetic. So that's what it's based on. And then so they went, well, what food is high in vitamin A? And it was liver. And of course, I don't know. Is there some sort of ulterior motive? Because vitamin A, yes, is high in liver. It's a beautiful dose, and I think it should be celebrated. But it's also a beautiful dose of everything else we need, like so many other things we need. And it's a food that is really celebrated in other cultures that really honor a woman's pregnancy and postpartum. They're given liver. For example, in China, liver is a really beautiful food. And if you travel through Europe, you'll see liver everywhere. You'll see it in restaurants. Everywhere. So, and that's because it's really, really beautiful for us. So it's demonized for that reason, and we know that we need it. The biggest issue is that we are more deficient than anything. We actually need more of it. Yeah.
Amazing. So interesting. It's hard. Medical professionals can often get this, myself included, where we hear one thing, one study, and it's almost like in passing from a colleague or something, and then you just think gung-ho towards that. But it's just research is such a tricky thing. You have to break down all the tiny little components and limitations of every single study. It's just exhausting.
Yeah, it is. Or we could just, yes, I think obviously in your case, being a midwife, you do need to keep up the game with many things. However, I guess when it comes to food nutrition and how we cook and etc., we don't have to rely on science for that. Yes, of course, when things get a bit more intricate and a little bit more serious, or if it's a new disease, of course, but culture and tradition and real food can teach us a lot in itself. So how we prepare foods, when we eat foods, and that's about it, and whether it's real or not.
Amazing. So good. Can you, Sheridan, tell the mamas where they can find you, where they can work with your amazing colleagues that you have, get some foraged, all that good stuff?
So, forageforyou.com is foraged. I share a lot of personal stuff on Sheridan Joy Austin, and I share some recipes, but I'm very lazy with that website now since 2 babies. And that's on SheridanJoy.com.
Even all your old recipes are still amazing.
Yeah, so many people still rely on those. I'm like, oh my God, how do you even find the website?
My poor mum gets stitched up making for my birthday every year the incredibly decadent chocolate cake. Oh my gosh. And they're so not into that. So mum's like, what's all this almond meal and avocado and a cake? She's so flustered by it. I'm like, it'll work. Just follow the recipe. And it's so good. It's my fave.
That is so good. Oh gosh, you can put it into muffins. That's something you could freeze for postpartum.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. So and you have 2 nutritionists that work for you, is that right? That people can book into?
Yeah, exactly. So I no longer consult just due to time limitations and putting more love into my babies than anything else. And so I've got two beautiful nutritionists that I align with so well, and we work together on cases that are a bit more tricky or anything. And so you can definitely book in with them as well on Foraged if you need that personal help, which honestly, I just think people should seek help when they need it, because it's such a minefield out there, especially with the amount of information, the amount of different diets. I think just stop letting it take years, and it could just take a few consults,
Yeah. Do you believe that it can take a few consults to fix?
It depends on the person.
Yeah.
I mean, to find answers a little bit more specifically,
Interesting.
When you find someone you trust, it could just be like, oh, you need that. Or do this rather than do all of this. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the case.
Yeah. How long did it take you to heal your gut?
Well, because no one really taught me anything, I had to find out a lot myself. It took a couple of years. And it was a minefield for me. It took a lot of research to know what I can and can't eat, and it was quite challenging. So, but if I had have just known what I know, I could have done it in a couple of months.
Amazing. I've definitely gone through multiple, throughout my life, big spurts of being like, I'm going to cut out everything, I'm going to do it all, and still have not, things have gotten lots better, but not hit the nail on the head where I'm just completely in flow and know exactly what I should and shouldn't eat. I don't know. I just feel like everyone's so different, and it's so complex, and it's so hard to nail down. It's like, is this just because I'm ovulating, or is this because I actually reacted to this food, or is this because I'm about to get my period, or it's confusing.
Oh, it is, especially with social media these days. It's like, it is insanity, isn't it, with the amount of advice out there? So, yeah, I really feel for people.
You just drive yourself crazy a little bit, but amazing. Oh, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. Appreciate your time heaps.
Oh, no worries at all. Thank you so much for having me, and it's nice to connect with midwives, and because I don't often get to actually connect with the midwives. They're out there and they're doing great things for me as well. So I thank you to any midwife that has shared the word. So, really grateful for that.
Fantastic. It's funny. I feel like we hear about you, you hear about us, but then it's all a little bit disconnected. So, no, it's so nice.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks. Well, have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, ladies. I really hope you enjoyed the podcast. One last thing quickly. If you are not pregnant, or you are and you're not quite ready to delve into the world of birth prep yet, you're going to want to jump into our Natural Birth Workers Advice, where we have gathered tangible advice from the best preconception, pregnancy, and birth professionals sent to your inbox every fortnight. From women's health physios to acupuncturists to chiros, all specializing in women's health. The link is in the show notes, and I'll see you in the next episode.